Okay, so again, welcome everybody. Happy New Year. We're still in January, so we can say happy 2022. Thank you so much for being here. I know it's still holidays and vacation season for some folks, so I did receive um, quite a few vacation responses for this meeting. So we are a bit of a smaller group than last time, but doesn't mean that it's any less worthwhile. Happy to see everybody who's here. Just wanted to tell folks that maybe some of the familiar faces and names from last time aren't here, not for lack of interest, but because a lot of folks are on vacation in different parts of the world. So um, to update everybody on why you're seeing my face and not Hanan's like you're used to, probably. For those who may not know, oh, and just is everyone hearing the interpretation that they need to be hearing? There is interpretation, so I'll just stop speaking for 1 second and make sure that you are able to select the interpretation channel that you need. There's Portuguese and Spanish. Anyway, so Hanan has changed roles. She's in a new professional role, a new organization now, and so um, as you may know from last time, we have a working group with the formed for ICBEC, and within the working group, we decided that at least temporarily for now, I'll be performing the secretariat duties, helping to move the consortium forward. And so you've been seeing emails from me, and I'm trying to do some of that behind the scenes work that is required for moving the group forward. And there was a lot to pick up on, and there were the holidays in between. So we haven't really been able to get to all of the things that we want to discuss with you all. We're going to be following up on the survey today, but I know that some of you had put specific questions in there, and especially about funding and whatnot. So we're getting there. We're working on it. I'm slowly but surely entering into this role, and with the working group, we'll get to all of that. But I'm kind of jumping forward. Don't want to get too far. That was a very wide welcome from my part, but I also wanted to give Karen a chance to welcome everybody and go over some of the remind us all, give us, we're starting here 2022, remind us a little bit about what we're doing here, what we hope to be doing here, and some of the next steps as we move forward. So Karen, over to you.
Thank you, Elena. And you'll do a screen share just so we have that slide up with the purpose statement.
Thank you. See, slowly but surely entering into the, I will get you those slides right now.
Thank you. Well, I'll just say hello and recognize that every time we have a meeting, there are some new people joining. So in some ways we have to keep reminding each other of who we all are. So I am Karen Miner. My main role is as Managing Director of the International Center for Cooperative Management at St. Mary's University in Canada. Like all of you, I play some other roles in the cooperative sector, and it's great to be helping to lead the rebirth of this international cooperative business education consortium. Some of us have some history with this that dates back to 2013. Some of us are brand new with this relaunch that really started in earnest 6-7 months ago. And we look forward to this year, really helping to solidify things and seeing where this can go. So because again, some faces and names are new today that weren't part of the last 2 plenary meetings that we had, I'm just going to spend a very brief moment on the purpose, membership, and sort of member responsibilities piece tied to this consortium. And some of that at that high level, I presume, was sent around, or we have a 1-pager that captures this. So this is available in an offline format. So the slide just on the purpose, if you want to flip to that, This, as you see, in short, sums up what the International Cooperative Business Education Consortium, or ICBEC, depending on your language, some other way of pronouncing that in a short form, we just say the consortium, is meant to be a global network where actors in cooperative business education, and we have some bullets that define roughly what that means, but it's a nebulous and somewhat broad category, however you wish to define it. How we can better understand each other's initiatives, programs, mandates, centers, etc. Figure out how to collaborate better where mutually beneficial, avoid overlaps. So again, by knowing what we each do, then we can figure out how to work together, or at least acknowledge where we may be doing things that are the same. And then for me, even more, not more importantly, but equally importantly, is to make sure what we do is relevant to cooperatives, credit unions, and mutuals globally, since that I at least feel is why we do what we do, who we serve, and who we're trying to make better as enterprises through the work we do in cooperative business education. So that's what the purpose of this consortium is. I like to think about Principle 6, cooperation among co-ops, as a key driver to why we would bother trying to pull a consortium like this together. Reinforcing the importance of us having relationships with each other, getting to know who we are as people and what we do through the work that we do. And that I think this really can show strength to the very broad and large and diverse cooperative movement globally, to know there is this consortium that brings together these actors, a bit of a brain, a central repository and knowledge center of what is available, what is being developed, and what is changing in the space of cooperative business education. So that's my pitch for what we are, why we should exist. A reminder, and this is spelled out as well in the 1-2 pager that talks about the consortium, there's 3 categories of membership in what right now is a global network. This isn't yet, it hasn't figured itself out in terms of whether it will be an organization, whether it will be linked in some formal way to another organization, for example, the International Cooperative Alliance, or how it will structurally form itself if this is going to be a long-term initiative. But regardless of that, we call on everyone that wants to be engaged to decide how they fit in. Do you fit in the full membership category? Do you fit in the associate member category, or do you fit as a supporter? And I would say if you don't fit in one of those 3, then we don't really have a name for you, but someone that's interested, that wants to stay in the loop and be informed. But we do that in the way that we link to many organizations. As for these 3, they're defined clearly in our document. And just think of it as a spectrum, the full to associate, like you're a full member. We would be a full member at the International Center for Cooperative Management. This is really what we do all the time. This is what we're all about. We're deeply engaged in cooperative business education. And many on this call would say, that's me too. Associate members may be earlier in their journey to being that. They may not have a center. There may just be some real interest in what this is, but they wouldn't yet feel they fit in full membership. And supporters really for those that aren't the ones building and offering and delivering cooperative business education, but they more often would be organizations that want to support, and that may be financial support, maybe in kind, maybe other types of support. And I use OCB in Brazil as just our poster child example of that at present, since they've been really working with us. And there are some others that are on the call right now. It might be individuals, might be organizations. And so I'm not going to go into details on that more, but we will, as part of follow-up after this meeting, remind people of how each of these are clearly described, and then ask for clarity in terms of what are you to this. And if you aren't one of the 3, we'll put you down as stay informed. And we are not excluding anyone from knowing what the consortium is doing, but we also want some clarity in terms of how people want to engage. Next slide, Alana. Just to reinforce that around responsibility tied to the 3 categories previously mentioned, there's different levels of what you would see in on this screen, but that we see it as, if you're going to be engaged with the consortium, presumably you're going to be using it. So we see it as this user relationship that we are defining together in terms of what does it mean we don't want this just to be one more meeting that we all have to schedule, or one thing that we say we're part of, but we can't quite understand why. So we want to make sure this has meaningful usership and engagement. And then the other piece that we've been talking about the last 6 months is funding. So there are funding hopes, not necessarily expectations or requirements, tied to being linked to this consortium. We say that because if there's absolutely no ability to provide any funding into the consortium to help support its growth, support the secretariat requirement and our ability to gather or to be doing things, doing projects, then that is fine. This is not about saying there is a price of entry into the consortium, but we hope that the value of being part of this consortium for those of us that can contribute financially, that we will. And that is a key role of the supporter category for many in terms of how they can really be helpful in ways that some of us as educators or located within institutions that may not have funds they can support can be supported by the supporters. So just a reminder on that, that's another area that in follow-up after this, Alana will help us to get a bit more clarity in terms of where things stand in terms of our funding stability in the year or so to go. So I'm seeing, I think there's an issue. If you can't hear me well, turn off the English translation when you're listening to English. I have that problem for some reason on my end as well. I see Alexandra's note saying, I feel like I'm probably talking through a pop paper bag. So yes, I just noticed that. Okay, that's it for me, Alana. I might have gone on a few minutes too long, so back to you.
No problem. Sorry, this microphone takes a moment to on and off. And Karen has reminded me that I, with the audio comment there, that we didn't go over the technical details at the beginning, but I hope the interpretation is working. Please kind of give me some head nods if everybody's doing okay with the languages that they need to be hearing. And if you do need to chat in, unfortunately, I can only reply to you all in English, but perhaps João in Portuguese, you can reach him, and I can read if you post in Spanish, but may have to reply to you in English. Maybe Mario, I'm calling on our working group members here for help. Maybe Mario can help reply if there's any requests in Spanish that that I'm missing in the chat. So if you do have questions, feel free to raise your hand with the Zoom during the meeting, or post a question in chat. And want to thank the interpreters very much for the hard work that they're doing here on all of our 3 channels. So, okay, I would like to now ask Colin, please. Colin
Yes.
is going to, he's one of our, Colin Bartholomew is one of our working group members, and will tell us a little bit about what we're doing in that group and who we are.
Hi, thank you, Ilana, and good morning from my end of the world. Colin Bartholomew, I'll just join in the same vein as Karen did, and also take the opportunity to reintroduce myself. Colin Bartholomew, I'm from Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. We are located in sunny Trinidad and Tobago. I know some people have indicated that in some parts of their world, it's very cold and chilly. But you know, year round, we are fortunate enough to have that warm sunshine. And currently, I am the Program Dean for Cooperative Studies and the Program Manager for Innovation and Enterprise Development at the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. And following the last consortium meeting, there was a call for a working group and for persons to indicate their interest in being part of the working group. And since then, we have had well, 8 organizations with different numbers of representatives come on board. And of course, apart from myself, we have Ilana and Karen, but we also have Mario Rajagan, Liere, and Fred from Mount Dragon University, Janet Dalababa from ICOP in Brazil, Susan Westhausen, and Dr. Onofre, Joao, and Clara coming out of the Sistema OCB. And since the last consortium meeting, we have had a couple working group meetings. Now, the working group, the call for the working group members was really thrust towards serving as an engine room for the wider consortium. And very timely, Ilana, you know, we're looking at the responsibilities. Now, there are some broader responsibilities which are then, you know, more then placed into a more granular framework. But in terms of the overall responsibilities coming out of the working group sessions, some key points have been established. First of all, the working group to serve as the steering committee and steward for the consortium, basically looking at all the work that would need to be done in between the consortium meetings in order to move the consortium forward in a particular direction and provide a particular framework. Also, we're looking at support and work with the secretariat or the administrator. And if you would see next to Ilana, she has indicated that she currently serves as the secretariat. You know, she's a giant in that capacity. And I know we would see we would see a number of you know, different forms of communication coming from Ilana, but you know, the working group, one of the key overall responsibilities would be to support and work with the secretariat or the administrator. Then we're also looking at developing the strategic framework for the consortium. Now, this is another critical role and responsibility because, you know, the strategic direction was identified as something very important to move the consortium forward and to get the consortium to where it needs to be. And, you know, Karen indicated a number of areas that, you know, we would like to pivot to as a consortium. So developing the strategic framework for the consortium is one of our responsibilities. And of course, next we also, as the working group, look to guide the core activity of the consortium. So of course, all the activity that would arise coming out of the consortium, looking to get that core activity, you know, whether the user and engagement, the funding, however it is eventually fleshed out as we continue to move forward, we could guide those core responsibilities. And as we get more granular and more specific, the working group really provides that input into the consortium plenary gatherings, the purpose, the agenda. We all are experiencing it here this morning as we get into this consortium meeting. And of course, you know, just with the provision of the agenda by Ilana and by the very nature of the amendment of the agenda, you know, we could really see that the input of the working group really guides this process. Communication, visual identity, logo, and translation. As I said, we are experiencing it. We have had some contribution as far as the logo, the visual identity goes. And I know Sistema OCB, Joao, you know, they have made their contribution. And of course, we continue to work with that visual identity and that logo. And as it indicates, eventually bringing it to the wider consortium for consensus building. And of course, determine the online tools for the consortium, which is actually a work in progress. So we will determine the most optimal tools that will enable everyone to fully participate, to fully be informed, and to fully immerse themselves into the experience, into the consortium experience. Just to backtrack and take a half step back, the communication element is a critical element. As Karen would have indicated, one of the key purposes of the consortium at the moment is really the network that will be established. So the communication is key, tied to the online tools that will optimize the experience for everyone in the consortium. So that, in a nutshell, is what we have established thus far. Since our last meeting, as indicated, we have had a couple working group meetings, 2 to be exact, and as we continue between consortium meetings and the wider plenary group meetings, we will continue to work as the working group to get the information, communication, and fulfill our responsibilities. So that's my piece in a nutshell, Ilana.
Thank you so much, Colin. Thank you.
Very welcome.
That's great overview of what we've been doing. And, you know, it's not a closed group by any means. If anybody has some energy that they feel that they would like to dedicate to the consortium, please let us know. So I'm wanted to provide some results of the survey that was sent around to the consortium at the relaunch. It was sent, the link was sent a number of times. Some of you, though, may be coming on just for this meeting. You may not have received that link in the past. I want it to be clear that you know, this isn't all determining. If you didn't get a chance to complete the survey, we can still, you know, we'd love to have your feedback on these questions. Perhaps we can move more towards one-on-one meetings, or you can send written feedback, or anyone is still welcome to complete the survey. But we thought it would be helpful to give a sense of what kind of responses we received so far. They're not that many, honestly. Of the about 200 times that it was opened, I believe, in the 3 languages, in English, Portuguese, and Spanish, we have a total of about 47 responses. Some questions, it varies from 45 to 47 responses. So I think one of the reasons for that was some of the questions people felt like they just weren't quite able to answer yet, specifically questions about funding or what exact membership level. And so a lot of people, I think, started it and then didn't complete it. So that's, I think, one important result of the survey, is that we weren't able to really collect everybody's feedback. So if you would like to give any feedback on any of these issues that that I present now, or anything that you hear in the meeting, you know, feel free also to send written comments, or you know, give me a call, even, you know, so we can still talk. So the survey may not have been the best tool for everybody, but here's wanted to share with you all what we did collect in the survey. So the main questions from this survey was to basically find out, you know, who's around, who's at the table, who's participating in these meetings so far. Oh, sorry, it was 49, not 47, but a couple. There were some double responses from organizations, which I removed then from the full count, as you'll see going forward here. Like I said, a lot of people started the questionnaire and then didn't finish it. In terms of who we are, the people that answered the survey, large portion of the participants are from universities. You can see this bigger share, or a center within the university. And then the other options you can see here, a school, or cooperative association, cooperative college, a bit fewer, 9%, cooperative development organization, and then a few that were listed as other but didn't specify what exactly. So very large portion is the university related participants. What kind of programs does your institution offer? So here you can see, I hope you all can read this, but it's divided by the type of program, and then the number. This was a multiple choice where you could put more than one answer. So you see the first column with the number of responses is how many people answered to that one, and then the percent of the total responses. So we have a large percentage, 57%, offer masters or master's type degrees, followed here by a university degree or program with some cooperative centered courses, then a non-accredited professional development. I'll let you continue to read down the list, and these slides will, of course, be shared with you after the meeting. But there's a big concentration here at the top. Of course, seeing as how many of the respondents were university related, it's not much of a surprise that the weight up here of the university type courses. Okay, gonna move on to the next one. And who are the participants or the students in these programs? So we see most people replied students, general students without particular previous cooperative experience. Also a large number of programs directed towards practitioners in the cooperative sector. So both. It seems like a lot of people were doing both. And who teaches in these programs? We have, of course, a high number of university professors from your own institution. Again, since there were a lot of universities, it's not so surprising. Some cooperative leaders as well, 73% responded cooperative leaders. Some university professors from other institutions. So we already see some sharing and exchanging going on. Independent researchers and other. And how are these courses delivered? We have quite high numbers for all of them. So people are still doing in person, online. This is probably a higher number than it would have been a year ago, and hybrid, so 57%. And where do the students come from? So like, what is the target of the programs? National level programs is the most selected here with 73%. We also have international, 40%, subnational, and so like maybe a state and then a region, but pretty high numbers for all of them. So a lot of people are have multi-target programs, I would say, is the takeaway from here. Now, here's what we really wanted to focus on and share with you, and also ask you to think about as we move forward. And I would really love to come back to that. We have to I have to let Olive present as soon as I can here, but if we have some time at the end of the meeting, we can talk about this slide a bit more with everybody, and maybe give some examples or some reasons if any of you are here at the meeting who completed the survey and would like to share any of the the reasons why you selected what you selected, or some thoughts on those specific answers. But just quickly to share with you, the most selected response here for what do you expect to gain by being a member is the knowledge sharing with peers. And that's one of the objectives of today's meeting. It's why we have some program presentations coming up. And it was one of the suggestions during the working group to try to start sharing knowledge. It's intended to be a presentation, not just on a superficial level, but really kind of helping to understand what might be some of the innovations or challenges in a program, so that we can collectively reflect on these things and learn from each other. So collaborations and partnerships with like institutions was the next highest selected. Joint projects in research and publications, and also join projects in education, curriculum design, faculty exchanges, student exchanges. So again, along the lines of collaboration and shared programming, increased recognition within the cooperative movement, 53%, international exposure for your own institution, 49%, and increased recognition of your program within your own institution, 43%. So these are very interesting results. You know, knowledge sharing is very general. So again, you know, one of the roles of the working group is to figure out how do we do that. But like I said, it'd be great if we could discuss this a little bit further if we have some time towards the end of the meeting. So with that, thank you to all of you who did complete the survey, and we look forward to hearing feedback from those of you who weren't able to. I think we'll save maybe questions. I really want to get Olive a chance to speak before she has to take off. So I'm gonna turn it right over to her, but I really encourage you all to note down your questions and let's talk about it after the project presentation, if that's okay with everybody. So I'm gonna stop my sharing. And Olive, are you there? And you can share your screen. Okay.
Yeah. Can everybody see that? Is that okay, Ilana? Okay, so thank you.
Got it.
Great, thank you. And thank you very much, Ilana, for moving the schedule today and for accommodating my presentation a little bit earlier, even though it has cut into your presentation a little bit. But it's a real privilege to be able to present to this group today. I see lots of very big names in the cooperative world and very interesting universities as well in this space. So it's a real privilege to be able to present to you today. I'm also joined by my colleague Bridget Carroll on the call today, who works on this master's program with me. So I'm just going to quickly run through the program and address just some of the things I was asked to address in particular about the program, and just to give you an overview of how we operate it. This actually, my first slide is here. I am with the Centre for Cooperative Studies at University College Cork in the south of Ireland, the very southern part of Ireland. And it is a very beautiful university. Many people say it reminds them of Hogwarts, if anybody likes to look at any Harry Potter. And my kids love to go there because it reminds them very much of Hogwarts. So what I have done for your viewing pleasure today is included some photographs from different parts of the campus on each of the slides, so you get a sense of what it looks like. And also to encourage any of you who would like to come and visit our centre for a short stay or a longer stay, we would love to have you, and you're very welcome. And I know there are some people on the call here who will have visited us before. It isn't always sunny and blue skies in Cork, despite the photographs that you'll see, so don't be fooled by that. It usually rains more than the sun shines, but it is a very beautiful campus, and I hope you'll enjoy the photographs, if not the presentation. So the program I want to talk about is the MSc, a master's program in Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development. So this is a master's program that I suppose has its roots in a program that started in 1993. But in recent years, in the last 3 or 4 years, we have revised, revamped and updated the program and changed the title somewhat, not much, but somewhat, to this title. And we've been running this new version of the program for the last 3 or 4 years in the university. This is a picture on the left of, there are allotments in the university, just slightly off campus, and this was just a display of some of the produce from the allotments on our kind of main, what we call our quad. It's kind of the very central focal point of the university that tourists love to take photographs of. So it's just a pretty photograph of that. In terms of the program itself, I suppose for some people, they think the title is quite odd, especially those who aren't like us, I suppose, very much committed to the cooperative model. But we very much see that, you know, sustainability, if we really want, you know, to improve sustainability and meet the sustainable development goals, then we absolutely need cooperatives to do that. We need people working together, producers working on their own, farmers working on their own, businesses, consumers. There's only so much you can do on your own, and actually, as we all know, there is great strength in numbers. And so the cooperative model is a very central part of this particular programme as a result. Not always readily understood by kind of broader business interests perhaps in the university, but very much appreciated, I would say, more outside the university at times than inside the university, where universities can often, I'm sure many of you will have that experience, have a very kind of narrow focus of business. So we see the cooperative element as being crucial to this programme, and it's actually gives it a competitive advantage, I would suggest, and sets this programme apart from the many other programmes in the space of sustainability at the moment at postgraduate level. This would be the only programme, certainly in Ireland, that would put cooperatives at the forefront of sustainable development, particularly in the agri-food space. So it's quite a unique programme in many respects. Just to mention that our business school is working towards international accreditation at the moment. So for those of you who are familiar with the accreditation process, which is quite difficult, we do have AMBA accreditation, that's for the MBA programme, and we're currently, we hope, on the cusp of AA CSB accreditation, and that has brought its challenges for us as well. Just in terms of the main features of the programme, just quickly to run through that, because I'm conscious that I don't have a lot of time, but it's a one-year master's programme delivered on campus, so it's not an online offering as such. So we ask our students to come to the university, and it's delivered over 12 months, so from September to August. From September to March, the students do coursework, which I'll talk about in a moment. And from April to August, it's very much about a practice-based research project working with a specific organisation in the field of cooperatives or sustainability, or depending on what the interests of the student are. So we have a range of academic modules which are designed to give students practical skills that are transferable across all walks of life, but particularly for their careers. As well as the theoretical work, and of course the huge exposure to kind of the industry as such and to practice in general. And our real focus is on ensuring that our graduates end up in employment. The typical graduate tends to be one who has just finished their undergraduate degree, although we have found that we get students who often have worked for a number of years in a completely different sector or completely different area, and who want to come back to do something more meaningful or to make a particular contribution in their communities or to society. And we've had, for example, there was a student a number of years ago who worked for the Financial Times in London and decided they wanted to give it all up and get back into kind of local food, and came back and did this master's programme. So we do get quite a lot of more mature students, and then we have usually about half and half of the class would be Irish and international students. So we get a lot of international students into the programme as well, usually from a wide range of countries. So we have somebody this year from Antigua, that was last year from Antigua, somebody this year from Palau, and a lot of African and Asian students as well, on top of the Irish students. These are just some of the kinds of topics that we cover in the Masters. So obviously issues around agri-food, policy, economics, supply chain, and values in the agri-food chain, values chain, sustainability. So we look at some of the contemporary issues, and in particular, how we're going to tackle those kinds of issues. And I suppose we do have a bias towards the cooperative model in tackling many of these issues: sustainable rural development, food systems, etc. Then cooperatives and collaborative responses to issues, as I said, and also the sharing economy. I've mentioned the transferable skills already around project management, research methods, professional development, and then the placement, which I'm going to talk about separately. In terms of innovative features, which I've been asked to talk about today, I suppose we're very much focused in the business school on experiential learning. So really we want students not just to get the theory, and of course the theory is important, but how does that translate into practice? And what happens on the ground? What do you do with all of this theory? And how do you use that, I suppose, to enact change? So some of the things we do in the programme, we would bring in a lot of visiting speakers, and I suppose that in many ways has been very much helped by COVID, because we've been able to bring speakers from all over the world into the classroom just through virtual means. In particular, we had a lot of speakers last year that we were able to do that with, and expose the students to all sorts of different, say, types of cooperatives that we wouldn't have in Ireland, for example. We have a focus on field trips, so getting the students out of the classroom, visiting co-ops, for example. More recently, they went to a farm that was working very hard towards reducing carbon emissions. So get them out of the classroom to see what's happening on the ground. Then some of the assessment is very much focused on real life issues that communities or businesses or industries have, and we work with those industries in designing the assessment and bringing them into the classroom to explain what their position is and what help they need, and that is built into the assessment for the students. And there's a photograph, sorry, there at the bottom, I just noticed that I'd forgotten that I put that in there. That was just a field trip to a community farm a number of years ago. And then I just mentioned the placement with the research project, which is really about placing students in organisations that have a need for, you know, the particular issue or challenge. They have a need for a piece of research to be done on that issue or challenge, and our students will then go in. So it's not, what we wanted to avoid early on was, you know, placement in a business. We didn't want them to end up being the one doing the photocopying or, you know, running out to get the coffee. We wanted them to be doing something real and meaningful with their placement time for 5 months. So we built it around a research project. So every student identifies a piece of research that the organisation needs done, and then we'll do it. So I just have one example of a student. This is Ashley, the wonderful Ashley Amato, who is from New York, came to do the programme. She got a placement with the local Chamber of Commerce here in Cork, and they were very interested in the whole area of anaerobic digestion. So she did a report looking at the potential of the cooperative model to deliver on anaerobic digestion, which, you know, we don't have. That might be quite common to some of you, but it's not something we have in Ireland. And so a link to the report that she wrote is down there on the left if anybody wants to look at that. And that's just a screen grab there in the bottom right. This was reported in a national newspaper, the work that she did. So that's just one example of many, many really interesting examples of how students have actually conducted very meaningful research as part of the master's programme. This is just a photograph there at the bottom left of Mike. Mike came to the programme with an environmental science background, but didn't really know much about business or business theory. And he says there that he felt that the programme was designed to complement, you know, where you were coming from in terms of your undergraduate degree. So he says there, if you're coming from business, you're learning about sustainability. If you're coming from science, you're learning about business. So he found it really useful to have that business element tagged onto his undergraduate science degree. He now works as an ecological project science on a water project. So Mike is a great ambassador for the programme. I just wanted to say, because of the audience that we have today, that we have scholarships. The fees are not, they're quite eye-wateringly high because of the business school environment. So we've worked really hard to get scholarships for potential students on this programme. So we have 5 very specific scholarships for anyone coming from the EU, and we've included the UK in there as EU just for convenience more than anything. And the details of those scholarships are there. The scholarships pay full fees and a stipend, and give the students an opportunity to work in a very relevant workplace environment, conducting that research piece. So the closing date for that hasn't been set yet, but it's summer 2022. We also have a very interesting range of non-EU, so anybody who doesn't come from the EU or the UK. The Government of Ireland has put funding available in place for 60 scholarships. Now that covers all postgraduate programmes in Ireland, not just our programme. But if someone were interested in applying for this programme, they could also think about applying for a Government of Ireland scholarship, which is considerably generous in that it pays the non-EU fee, which is almost double the EU fee, but also pays a €10,000 stipend so that student can live in Ireland for the year. So they're both hugely generous sets of scholarships, and they're worth just checking out if anyone had any interest or knew any individuals or students that they have who might like to come to Ireland for the year to study in this space. I've just been asked to address any challenges or obstacles we have, and of course we have plenty. COVID Of course, threw up many challenges for us, particularly last year in terms of having to deliver the entire programme online. That had some advantages as well, but it just made it more difficult, particularly for the placement piece. If students didn't feel they were out in the organisations that they were doing research on. They had to stay at home and do it from their bedrooms. And they didn't have that interaction with each other in the classroom in the same way we would have had in other years. And of course, we weren't able to do the field trips and so on. The fees, as I said, are quite high, and we would have a lot of interest from students in developing countries where, our fees would probably be 5 years' income for some. The international fee is €18,000, and that's why those Government of Ireland fees or scholarships are so valuable. So it's certainly anybody from a developing country who were interested in the programme, very much encourage them to look at the Government of Ireland scholarships and do that fairly quickly. I suppose there is a drive in the business school for very large programmes and less of a kind of an interest in more niche programmes. So we struggle with that, I suppose, in terms of we don't want this programme to get too big because we want to give the students a good quality experience. So there's a kind of a tension or a dilemma for us in terms of the business school wanting to drive programmes to be larger and us trying to keep them manageable. There is a lot of internal competition, and there's been a lot of new programs that have come in the sustainability space, but also kind of a lot more kind of conversion type masters where students with, say, science or law can get into business programs more easily now. So that creates more competition for us. And then finally, the state has funded some other programs in the area of sustainability as well. And that funding is temporary, for 2 or 3 years, but it can drive programs like ours out of business. It can displace those programs, and then there's nothing left at the end, because once the funding is pulled for the other programs, if we're not there and they're not there, it just leaves a huge gap. So we do have some kind of threats and challenges and obstacles, and I'm sure it will resonate with many of you in universities around the world. And just my last slide is just some contact details. If anybody would like some more information or want to put somebody in touch with me, I'm more than happy to talk to them about the programme. So thank you very much, Alana, and thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much, Olive. Thank you. That's great. And if you could send me the slides, then I'll make sure that we get those around to everybody as well. If you have a couple more minutes, Olive, we can open it up to, okay. If there's any questions at this point about the program or any comments, go ahead and raise your hand or open up your microphones. Let's see. Okay, Fred, I see right away here. Go ahead.
Alana, and thanks for the presentation, Olive. Greetings also to Bridget. I have a question about, we wrestle a lot with, have wrestled a lot over the years with student evaluation, assessment might be called, and particularly with respect to not so much content of particular modules or courses, but with what are frequently called transverse competencies. One of particular interest is teamwork and cooperation, that we claim, and many programs claim, that their students will be learning these competencies, will be learning about teamwork and cooperation. And we have wrestled with how, is there a way for the program to evaluate how students, without sitting in on their team sessions, we've thought about asking students to evaluate each other and a number of different strategies. We wonder if you do any of that evaluation of transverse sort of social competencies.
Yes, thanks, Fred. And that is probably a universal problem around that kind of teamwork piece and students working together. Because what I have found is that students don't like it in many cases. They often suffer from, 1 or 2 students in the group not cooperating enough or not contributing enough. And students often ask, tell me there's no group work. We want to work on our own. And in the university, there is a policy around group work as well, and how to evaluate it. But that policy became advisory because it turned out that it just wasn't workable across all disciplines. In our cooperative module on this program, we do get the students to do group work. And how we kind of evaluate that group work is we ask them to self-evaluate as such. So, as you know, they submit the group piece, but then they also submit a separate piece where they evaluate how they felt they worked in the team and how they felt the team itself worked. And that's how we evaluate that kind of process. But I fully understand what you're saying in terms of, you know, especially in a cooperative program, we need to be able to evaluate the ability to cooperate, and that's so important later on, you know, for students who end up working in that kind of space as well, that they are able and they understand how teamwork and group work works and how it doesn't work and what the difficulties in the process can be. So yes, it's certainly something we've grappled with. I'm sure most people in the room will have as well.
If you have a one-page sort of guidelines that you give to instructions that you give to students about the self-evaluation, if you could share, that would be great. Thank you.
Oh, yes, no problem.
Okay, Jordan?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you, Olive, for a really fascinating presentation. I'm at UW-Madison in the US, and the Department of Agricultural and Applied Economics, where the Center for Cooperatives is. Some of you might know Courtney Berner. And, you know, we don't have many programs like this, of course, in the US. There is, of course, the same areas in Canada, but, you know, we would love to do something like this, I think, in the US, but we come across so many challenges. I'd be curious how you guys sort of initially started this, because you know, our challenge is sort of coming up with the initial funding, and then of course the university and others want to see that there's enough demand, but sometimes the demand isn't there unless you already sort of have a program to advertise and drum up enthusiasm. So it's kind of a chicken or egg problem. So I'd be curious how you guys overcame that initial challenge.
Sure. Well, the program initially, it's long before my time. It was set up in 1993, and some of you will know Professor Michael Ward and Professor Dennis Lucy, both of whom are now retired, but they set the program up initially in 1993, and at that, or maybe it's 1991, and it doesn't matter, early 1990s, and they had secured EU funding at the time to pay for the fee. So they were bringing in 40, 50, 60 students a year into the program who had their fees paid for them. So that's what I suppose helped the program to get established, and there were very large numbers in the early years. Then that funding source ended, but I suppose the program had found its space in the university, had found its niche in the marketplace, and continued very successfully, bringing in maybe 15, 20 students every year over the next 10, 15 years after the funding went. But then, as I said, the numbers started to dwindle, and we just, I suppose because possession is 9/10 of the law, we had a space, I suppose, in the curriculum of the university. And of course, our Centre for Cooperative Studies is the oldest research centre in the university. So it had a pretty good, I suppose, standing and reputation in the university already. So we just said, well, we're just revamping the program, and we kind of just stayed in the space that we have claimed over many, many years. I suppose now for us, it is more of a struggle now. We're expected to have a minimum of 20 students in the program, or we're, there's a lot of eyes on us if we don't get 20 students in. Last year we had 26, which kept the eyes off us. This year we have 17, and straight away the accountants are looking at us. The business school board is looking at us and saying you got to get those numbers up. So because it's quite a niche program, it is always a challenge to recruit students into it. But I think we were already in the space with that. We've been there a very long time, so that's really helped us. But like I said, there's a lot of what you would describe as challenger programs that would be almost competing for the same kinds of students, only that we're very specific to agri-food and we're very specific to cooperatives, and nobody can beat us in that space. So long as we can get that cooperative message out there and show that this is what's unique and different and so important about this is the way we're going to get sustainability done, but we have to constantly work to get that message out there and try to hold our space where we are. So I understand your difficulties, and I would imagine most people do, that the cooperative model is often seen as marginal in a business school setting, and to try and keep that kind of center stage is constant work. But knowing that others are are struggling in that space is very consoling to us. And it's always nice when we have an external examiner coming in from North America, for example, who says we've exactly the same problem in our business school. It's very consoling, and if there's some, through forums like this where we can actually work together and keep that space, is really important for us. And thank you, Jordan, for the comments.
It's an excellent point. And as you two are talking about this, I mean, it's something that a lot of people, at least in Europe, are focused on right now. There's a number of European projects. I saw Nazik posted one, but there's others, and there's a lot of talk right now about how to get these kinds of programs into business schools or into universities in general. And as you're talking, it reminds me that there's new Erasmus Plus funding coming out of the EU that has a line for joint master's programs. And also, I haven't explored all of the program guide yet, but from the little that I've seen, it seems to be also more open to going beyond the borders of Europe this time around as well. So could be something interesting to look at, especially if there's a lack of funding for starting up new programs. It could be some type of funding to look at for collaboration. So just want to throw that out there. And I see that Dr. Onofre has his hand up. So please, over to you.
Bom dia a todos, boa tarde. Eu tenho uma pergunta: se nesse programa, foi apresentado agora, existe algum aluno fora do eixo europeu de cooperação? Se existe algum latino-americano, eu gostaria de saber, porque nós temos interesse, no Brasil, principalmente, fazer a difusão de jovens, que será a minha apresentação próxima, para esse tipo de convênios. E a bolsa, se ela é 100%, qual a percentagem da bolsa? Obrigado.
I'm really sorry, I forgot to switch on the interpretation for that. If anybody could summarize that question for me, I apologize.
Sorry, Olive, I missed what you said in response just now. I was switching the...
Yeah, I apologize. I forgot to switch on for that. So
you didn't hear the question. He was asking about if there's students from beyond Europe, and to explain a little bit, because it's something they're very interested in, Brazil, and also to explain a little bit better how the scholarship works.
So thank you for the question, and thank you, Elena, for translating that for me. Yes, so we get students from all over the world. So we have had plenty of students from South America as well, Ecuador. We have a lot of interest from Brazil, and there are some kind of funding mechanisms between Brazil and Ireland from time to time. And it's the very smart students who discover the scholarships that are available through their own governments as well. The scholarships that we have, the non-EU, so the ones that would apply to Brazil, is the Government of Ireland Scholarship. How that works is anybody who's interested in the programme must apply for the programme first and be offered a place on the programme. So we need to know first that they actually qualify to do the programme. And once they have an offer on the programme, they can then apply for the Government of Ireland Scholarship. That is administered by the government itself. So I've a link in the slides where you can click into the full details there. So you make an application to the Irish government for funding to do the master's programme. It is highly competitive. As I said, there are 60 scholarships available for the entire country for every master's program in Ireland. So only a small fraction of applicants will be successful. But it is open to Brazil, and anybody from Brazil is welcome. We're very happy to take applications from Brazil, and I'm very happy to talk to anybody offline as well about those scholarships. But if you click on the link in the slides, I'll send the slides to Alana this afternoon for circulation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olive. We should move on now to the next presentation, but there's definitely a lot more here to explore. And as Olive said, her contact information is there, and perhaps we can pick up on some of these in the next consortium meeting, some of the specific topics. But this is exactly why we wanted to hear from specific programs and really hear more than just the overview, but what are the issues that people are dealing with. So this was a great conversation. I'm sorry to cut it off, but if we don't, then we won't make it through the rest of the agenda. So thank you so much, Olive. I know that you have to run, so
thank you, Alana. If I don't stop now, my children will be standing outside on their own as well. So thank you all very much. And happy to talk offline to anybody who needs more information or wants to talk about our experiences anytime, no problem.
Thank you so much. Okay, bye-bye. So I believe that somebody from, I think maybe Dr. Onofre or another colleague from the OCB-MT would like to present about an exchange program for young people. Is Onofre, Dr. Onofre, are you going to present?
Sim, sou eu que vou apresentar. Eu não sei se vocês conseguiram colocar na tela para me apresentar, porque se não colocarem, eu também vou falar o que é esse projeto. É um projeto piloto, embrião, para nós discutirmos no futuro, não é para agora, é para que o consórcio fique sabendo que existe um projeto que nós queremos compartilhar com todos. Então, eu pensei nos nossos jovens, o intercâmbio de jovens a nível mundial. Eu vejo que há uma questão que ainda vamos desenvolver, que é a questão do financiamento, dos fundos. Então, nós também teremos paciência de esperar que esse projeto, em torno de 2 anos, ele seja muito mais trabalhado, e também, com a apresentação anterior da nossa amiga, ficou bem claro que, naturalmente, que os nossos jovens, eles precisam de financiamento. Então, sumariamente, o projeto é para jovem de 17 a 25 anos. Esses jovens são um homem e uma mulher, pelo menos de cada instituição, para que eles sensibilizem, enquanto jovem, a opção do cooperativismo como negócio. Então, são futuros CEOs para as nossas cooperativas e também para que alimente e retroalimente o nosso negócio a nível mundial. Na realidade, a criação disso já existe. Natural que intercâmbio entre nós já é comum, mas tão específico para jovens, ainda eu vejo que precisamos trabalhar bastante. Então, na minha opinião, é um projeto que precisa ser discutido, que precisa ser acrescentado, muitas vezes retirada alguma coisa, para que possamos, no futuro, tendo recursos, eu penso que é importante para o desenvolvimento tanto do nosso consórcio, porque é um programa que pode ser estudado ao longo de 2 anos. Não queremos que resultados a curto prazo, tem de ser a médio. Por quê? Porque eu vejo que uma das questões principais do consórcio é seu financiamento. Como que nós vamos fazer sem recursos financeiros dentro do nosso escopo do próprio consórcio internacional? A nível de Brasil, nós estamos trabalhando as 4 faculdades brasileiras para que também existe aqui um consórcio interno entre nós. Aí teremos experiências, quem vai realmente financiar. Na minha instituição, aqui na faculdade, no I.COP, nós já temos várias cooperativas mantenedoras. Então, nós estamos levando esse projeto aqui a nível interno. Uma outra coisa que eu gostaria de falar é que eu estou muito confiante que o consórcio produz, no futuro, intercâmbio entre esses jovens e também negócio entre as nossas cooperativas a nível internacional. Eu vejo, por exemplo, se nós intercambiamos com a Inglaterra, por exemplo, ou com o Canadá, ou com o Mondragon, naturalmente que esses alunos, esses jovens dessas instituições virão ao Brasil conhecer melhor as nossas cooperativas. E eu vejo que isso é uma maneira de, no futuro, a gente desenvolver um negócio entre as cooperativas, que é um desejo de todos. Porque, através da educação corporativa, cooperativista, nós teremos, sim, um intercâmbio grande, não só na parte educativa, mas na parte negocial. E aí eu vejo um terceiro ponto, que é a sustentabilidade de tudo isso. O planeta está passando por uma dificuldade global. A pandemia nos está mostrando que precisamos mais de colaboração entre nós. Não é só de cooperativismo, é de colaboração e cooperação para que possamos ter um planeta mais equilibrado ecologicamente, socialmente e economicamente mais sustentável. Eu confio nos jovens. Nós estamos trabalhando os jovens no Brasil para que eles possam, com a vivência que eles têm nas cooperativas e também na sociedade, melhorar para todos. Então, o projeto está aí lançado. Ele foi enviado em português, em inglês, no espanhol e o francês, para que vocês vejam e que divulguem para nós, no futuro, discutirmos mais algo em torno desse projeto. Da minha parte, eu gostaria também de apresentar uma outra pessoa que vai substituir a professora Janete. Então, ela vai entrar na parte do grupo de trabalho, que é a Tatiane, que está aqui presente comigo agora. Então, eu gostaria que ela falasse alguma coisa e apresentando. Ela é a nova componente do grupo e eu fico pela OCB Brasília e ela fica pelo I.com. Gostaria, Tatiane, de falar alguma coisa?
Olá, meu nome é Tatiane Perondi e a partir de agora eu serei responsável pela direção do ICOP e da faculdade aqui no Mato Grosso, em Cuiabá. Sou pedagoga, especialista em gestão de pessoas e estou cursando mestrado na área de educação. Espero poder colaborar muito com esse grupo. Obrigada.
Então, Ilana, da minha parte, é isso. Muito obrigado e avante. Vamos trabalhar juntos.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that presentation. I wrote in the chat, but the document that Dr. Onofre refers to, we will send it out with the minutes. It's a one-page explanation of the project that he's just discussed. If there's any questions, we have time for maybe one or two, but I also want to leave some time for the rest of the agenda as well. But are there any questions for now on this project or on this idea or the thought of being able to exchange students in this consortium in the future? It's definitely an issue we can return to, and you know, for sure we will return to. Okay, nothing at this time. Okay, so thank you so much. I think these first two project presentations were really interesting and definitely a good example of the types of knowledge sharing that we can do in this group. So thank you so much. One of the other things that we started, for those of you who weren't with us at the last two meetings, we're trying to give some time to each of the participants, doing one or two at each meeting, just very brief introductions so that we all get to know each other. So today we have Colombia Perez on the agenda first to just give us a brief hello and tell us who you are and what institution you represent.
Hi to everybody. Happy New Year for all of you. I want to share the screen, please.
Okay, I'll have to assign you the ability to do that.
Please.
1 second. Okay, you should be able to do that now.
Is it okay?
Yes.
Bueno, muy buenos días para todos. Mi nombre es Colombia Pérez y trabajo en la Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia. Desde los inicios de este proyecto estuvimos en Canadá muy interesados en avanzar en este consorcio internacional. La Universidad Cooperativa de Colombia es una universidad multicampus que tiene sedes en 6 regiones colombianas, en 18 ciudades, y nace con el movimiento cooperativo en 1958 y desde ese entonces hace parte de sus compromisos estratégicos el trabajar en la economía solidaria del cooperativismo. Somos una institución auxiliar del cooperativismo que es una forma que tiene definida la ley en Colombia para el sector. En nuestra universidad venimos creando desde hace unos años un ecosistema para la economía solidaria. Y en ese ecosistema pues vamos logrando articular año a año nuestras experiencias de educación, de investigación, de emprendimiento solidario y de gestión. En educación tenemos cursos de pregrado en economía solidaria y cooperativismo en todas las carreras. Tenemos también posgrados, especializaciones y maestrías en economía solidaria. Y en un portafolio de educación continuada que se desarrolla en modalidades presenciales, virtuales e híbridas. Este ejercicio educativo se conecta con nuestros temas de investigación. Hay investigadores en economía solidaria, aproximadamente 36 investigadores en la universidad frente al tema, con proyectos en economía solidaria. Y también trabajamos el emprendimiento solidario muy conectado con la innovación social en los territorios. Y también hace parte de un programa permanente el activar el ADN cooperativo y solidario de nuestra comunidad, que llega a ser de 34.000 estudiantes, 7.000 empleados y más de 100.000 egresados. Entonces, un tema permanente el reflexionar y aportar desde la economía solidaria del cooperativismo para la transformación social. El recorrido de todos estos años nos ha permitido tener relaciones estrechas, productivas, de colaboración y de construcción de conocimiento con redes y aliados en todo el mundo. Pertenecemos a la Alianza Cooperativa Internacional y a redes como RIPES, Rulescope, Unicosol, y tenemos convenios con diferentes universidades en el mundo. Esto hace que tengamos pues desarrollos específicos bajo un modelo educativo que se llama modelo crítico con enfoque de competencias. Ese es el modelo de la universidad, el modelo pedagógico, pero nosotros hemos hecho un aterrizaje especial a la economía solidaria y al cooperativismo. Y en ese contexto, a nivel educativo, se generan actividades como los festivales solidarios, los trueques, experiencias de comercio justo y comercio responsable en todos nuestros campos. También tenemos semilleros de investigación y tenemos, estos son modalidades de grado de apoyando a las organizaciones cooperativas y solidarias en los territorios. Y a nivel mundial, en este momento, una estudiante de la universidad es el representante de las Américas en el Comité Mundial de Jóvenes de la Alianza Cooperativa Internacional. A nivel de investigación, pues tenemos publicaciones, en especial nuestra revista Cooperativismo y Desarrollo, y tenemos libros, una colección específica de economía solidaria, tenemos grupos de investigación y espacios de apropiación social del conocimiento como las cátedras libres de economía solidaria, que a la fecha, en los últimos 4 años, han logrado la participación de 37.000 personas. Y tenemos un evento cada 2 años, que este año, y de una vez una invitación al 4º encuentro de investigación en economía solidaria e innovación social. Y estos son imágenes de nuestras cátedras libres que se realizan en todas las regiones en simultánea o durante el mes de julio, desde el primer día de julio hasta el final. El 31 de julio celebramos el Día Internacional del Cooperativismo de diferentes maneras, académicas, culturales. Aquí vemos unas imágenes de el premio Rimel Serrano Uribe, nuestro, que es un reconocimiento a uno de nuestros fundadores, y llevamos 11 años haciendo el premio, y es para los jóvenes que tienen ideas de negocios cooperativos y solidarios. Y cada año avanzamos en este tema con negocios, con líneas como los agronegocios, temas de transformación digital, mejoramiento en la gestión, entre otras. Entonces, venimos a través de este ecosistema desarrollando o avanzando en un concepto de economía solidaria 4.0 a partir de la cultura de la solidaridad, buscando el fortalecimiento empresarial y la integración solidaria en los territorios, y en un modelo educativo con enfoque para toda la vida que tenga en cuenta competencias digitales, competencias transversales, el e-learning como una metodología, y promoviendo el emprendimiento solidario y la innovación social. Estos son ya una parte de la información que les doy. Y entonces, ¿cómo nos relacionamos con el consorcio internacional? Nosotros consideramos que la educación es la base de la transformación social y empresarial, y nos parece importante el poder emprender y desarrollar modelos educativos que le permitan emprender con identidad, unos modelos que sean flexibles, pertinentes y, como lo he reiterado, en un portafolio que permita a lo largo de la vida estas experiencias educativas. También nos parece muy interesante en el consorcio el poder trabajar en red. Por ser una universidad multicampus, sabemos trabajar en red, nos gusta trabajar en red y tenemos competencias para hacerlo. Y las tecnologías de información y comunicación pues han roto las fronteras, han abierto horizontes, y el poder pensar que estaríamos trabajando con diferentes universidades y con diferentes actores en el mundo nos parece muy atractivo. Esperaríamos ser miembros plenos del consorcio porque tenemos un portafolio interesante de educación cooperativa y tenemos diferentes experiencias orientadas al modelo de negocio cooperativo, y eso nos permitiría pues participar activamente en el consorcio. ¿Qué esperaríamos aquí en este consorcio? Coincidimos con la encuesta, ¿cierto? Que nos mencionaron al comienzo. Lo principal es el intercambio de conocimientos sobre educación y gestión cooperativa. Esperamos hacer proyectos conjuntos. Nos parece también interesante tener intercambios de profesores, que la experiencia en el consorcio nos permita mostrar a nuestra gran comunidad universitaria experiencias exitosas de activación de ADN cooperativo y solidario. Creo que el consorcio también nos permite un posicionamiento importante frente tanto al cooperativismo como a los diferentes modelos de negocio que hay en el mundo, y porque nos permitirá también internacionalizar la oferta educativa. En este sentido, esperamos también contribuir entonces con dinero y en especie. Y
Colombia,
de esta manera
Colombia,
vamos a...
disculpe. Colombia,
Sí.
disculpe. Thank you so much. Sorry to interrupt you, but we have only 2 minutes left of our meeting today.
Oh, yes.
And
This is the last. This
okay.
is the last. I'm just saying that con todo este proyecto, ¿cierto? Nosotros esperamos desarrollar nuestra mega al 2025, que es que la universidad tenga territorios solidarios en todo el país y que todo este intercambio cultural y educativo sirva para fortalecer este proyecto.
Thank you so much, Colombia. Again, sorry to interrupt you, but we really are reaching the end of our time. Thank you for that very interesting overview of your university, and we'll have time in the coming meetings to explore it further. We did have Rafael Ziegler on the agenda because he wanted to share a very interesting resource with everybody. I'm getting a message that translation is mixed up. I'll give the translators a moment. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay. I was just saying that Rafael Ziegler is on the agenda today to tell us about a very interesting initiative at his university. Rafael, I don't want to rob your time. If you wanted to maybe very quickly say what the resource is, and then we can also give you more time at the next meeting to discuss it further, or we can send around with the minutes some further information, because it's very interesting what you have to share. So please, if you want to take 2 minutes.
Sure. So hello, my name is Raphael. I'm from the HEC Montreal. It's a business school in Quebec in Canada, which programs in French, English, and Spanish, where I'm in the Department of Management. teaching in sustainability and social innovation. I'm just going to say one word about it because Fred raised it and it was interesting. So we also try to do a lot of group working. Our experience has been relatively positive, and we use learning assessments to see what people think about how it works when you work together in the study. So Fred, maybe I can send you that afterwards, how we do it, and I would be very interested in the exchange on this, because I do think it's an important topic to track. And so within our university, we have something called the Desjardins Institute of Cooperative Studies, which is named after the cooperative Desjardins Bank, which has 3 axes, one on research, where currently we welcome Sonia Novkovic as a visiting professor. She told us about this network, that's why I'm here. And we would also like to become members of your network. It's very interesting. On the one hand, to learn about good practices, as already today. Very interesting. I can tell from experience, a lot of our students are very interested in agriculture. So it was nice to see this presentation and what are the options there. Then we have education and transfer activities, where we work currently with, I see that Etienne is there from IRECUS on an online education MOOC tool. And the one, very briefly, I know Ilana, you have to finish it. The one thing that is really at the core of our Co-op Institute, I'll put it in the chat, one moment. Let's see here, is something called the Portail Co-op Gateway. And basically we have the goal that over the years, we provide an online inventory with lots of digitalized information on cooperatives. The idea being that this can help facilitate both research and teaching if more of the literature on co-ops, both the gray literature, like annual reports of cooperatives, but also research is available in a digital form so that you can easily research it. So if you click on this link, you will see we try to offer our services in English, French, and Spanish. So unfortunately not the Portuguese, but maybe we'll get there eventually. But so that's the 3 languages you can find this in. And so right now you find lots of, gray literature, I would say, from cooperatives that's already online. We have already on our backload system a bibliography of about 6,000 titles of research on cooperatives. I hope this will be launched this spring. We had a technical bug, so it's going to be a bit later, but very soon we will also have a pretty big research inventory. And the last bit that I would like to mention is you will find, if you go on the Portail, there's a request tool. So if you have, for example, a specific research project in mind, you can fill out, with your ideas, and then our librarian, Genevieve Handfield, who is in charge of this Co-op Gateway, she can see if we can support you in some way or other with the documents that are online. It's quite big. It's about 50,000 documents that have already been digitalized. They're not all yet on the front line because of this thing, but she's very happy to facilitate. So I hope this gives you some sort of idea of what this is. And do not hesitate to just send me an email after if you have further questions. Merci.
Thank you so much. Sorry for the very short time. As I wrote in the chat, if you have other announcements or links that you would like to share, go ahead and email them to me, and I will put them in the meeting minutes when I send it around to everybody. So with this, we're going to close the meeting. Sorry for going a couple minutes over. But thank you all very much for joining us, and thank you for the fabulous presentations and all of the food for thought. And we'll come back to these issues in the upcoming meetings. The next one is already scheduled. Hopefully you already have it in your calendars for the 3rd of May at the same time. So thank you so much, everyone, and looking forward to hearing from you between now and the next meeting and seeing you then.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And thank you to the interpreters. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Obrigado. Até a próxima.
To the next one. Bye-bye. Thank you. And to our working group, we'll see you on February 7th, right, Colin and Onofre and Tatiana, right? Yeah, okay.
Obrigado a todos. Thank you so much, everyone. Obrigado,
Thank
Sr. Onofre. Bom
you.
conhecê-la, Tatiana. Professor Kleber aqui do ICOP falando. Abraço.
Thank you. Thanks.
Nice to see everyone here. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too. Karen, do you know if I save the chat, if it goes into a file somewhere that you have access to?
Normally you could just save it to your desktop.
It's not giving me an option of where to save it. If I click on save the chat, it just.
Okay, for me, when I hit save, it then says show in folder, so I can pick up that it put it in my like PC Zoom folder. I can just pull that into.
Okay. Yeah, if you could
the
put that
Dropbox
into
you want?
Dropbox, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Thanks very much. So, okay, I think we can let the interpreters go. Thank you to all of them. Thank you so much. Thank you. And Karen and Colin, I think we'll check in by email for, and Onofre is still here. We'll check in by email for the next working group meeting and the follow-up items.
Okay, fine. Yeah, good on my side.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Alana. I just thought I'd stay on for a minute in case there was anything, but you're good.
Yes, yes.
I think so. We've yeah. I would have to end the meeting and start a new one maybe, but I need to run and get my daughter, and I am so I'm leaving for Los Angeles tomorrow. So I'll be kind of on and off over the next week. I'll check my emails and try to follow up on some of this. In theory, I should be on vacation, but probably won't be. So I'll probably work on getting some of the minutes and such out from today's meeting. And I'll probably ask both of you and the rest of the working group if I'm forgetting anything on those matters. So let's say we'll be in touch via email over the next few days.
Yeah, no problem. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Y'all
I'm
take
going to
care.
turn off the recording. It's still on.
Okay.